So we're gonna open this up with the neck bones and oxtails. You'll have to excuse my voice because I'm coming off of a cold. But here I'm just opening up all of the meat. You see me kind of inspecting the neck bones because that's my first time cooking with them. So I'm kind of trying to see what kind of meat they are. And my cat's trying to bite me right now. Ah, ah. And now that the cat's occupied, we can go back into the seasoning here. This is just curry powder. And then I'm gonna add some salt, and then some pepper as well. Once I do that, I am going to cut up the onion, slice it up real thin or relatively thin. And this is going to go in with the oxtails. Oxtails actually were one of those cuts of meats that were undesirable by the masters of the enslaved and were given to the slaves. So this is kind of how it came to be part of soul food as we know it. You see me here mixing everything together, massaging it real well or as well as I can. Excuse me. And then once we are done massaging, we are going to start crushing up some garlic. When it comes to garlic, I really don't measure. It's just whatever the heart feels is the right amount. That's pretty much it. I chose to use curry as the base because my family is from Jamaica and I grew up on Jamaican curry. So I wanted to incorporate that into a soul food dish, and that's kind of how I came up with curry braised oxtails. Here, I'm going to fill up a second bowl with a little bit of flour. Then I'm going to season that flour with some pepper, garlic and onion powder, and a little bit of salt. And this is going to be used to dredge the oxtails and the neck bones in that flour. This part I'm doing because once I start braising the meat, I want the flour to be able to almost produce its own gravy that it's going to be braising in once I add the chicken stock and once the meat starts to render down its fat. Very similar to the way of lobster, oxtail has increased in price over the years as its popularity has continued to improve. Oxtail is a very tender meat once you braise it, I guess, as with any meat, but high in collagen because of its high bone content to meat ratio. It's an amazing food. Here I am starting to sear off each piece of meat to kind of cook some of the flour and get some of the floury taste out of it, but also to kind of create that crust in order to get some browning and add to the flavor of the overall dish by the end of it. I'll continue to do that in small batches until everything is done or all the meat is seared on all sides. And then here are those onions that I dredged in flour or the remaining flour. I am going to put in the pan, kind of saute those around, same thing, trying to cook off some of that flour taste, get some color on those, sweeten up the onions a little bit. And then I'm going to add some stewed tomatoes. You'll see me breaking up some of the tomatoes into smaller pieces, adding a little bit more curry just because I felt like it wasn't enough, and of course, adding more garlic. Just stirring that around, kind of mixing everything together, and then I am strategically going to arrange all of the oxtails into this pan after adding a little allspice there. You can see I severely underestimated how large my pan was or overestimated the amount of meat I would need, and so it was kind of like playing Tetris to put everything in there. Just topping off with some chicken stock, and then they'll braise for probably about 2.5 hours. And then here I am just washing each of the greens leaf by leaf. I feel like that's a more thorough process than doing a full submersion of all the leaves at once a couple times. Since I'm only doing a couple bunches, it's not too bad. And then I am despining each of the leaves, kind of like asparagus. I just break wherever it's easiest and pull the spine out from there. And in order to cut these, you kind of lay them all flat, roll them up, and then do kind of a upscaled chiffonade, if you will. To get the greens started, we are, instead of doing ham hocks or turkey necks, which is what some people would do, we're just using bacon and adding shallots and, of course, garlic. Once that sautés a little bit, I'm adding a couple tablespoons of sugar. Again, kind of letting that dissolve a little bit. Then adding all the greens, which I will also top off with some chicken stock, and those will braise alongside the oxtails for about the same amount of time. Blackberry cobbler is a super easy recipe. It's just going to be 1 cup of self-rising flour. In this case, I made my own, half a stick of butter. I didn't have any white sugar, so I used brown sugar, and then a cup of whole milk. You just mix all of this together. Creates a pretty thin batter, but it'll solidify pretty nicely once it's in the stove. Then I added some vanilla and maple extracts just to kind of add a complexity to the dish. Grease the pan, pour it in the batter, and then all you're gonna do is top off with the blackberries. I'm using frozen here as opposed to fresh, and it turns out that these actually worked pretty darn well. I was pretty pleased with how it went. The miso grits were pretty simple. Just got some chicken stock to a boiling level, added the grits. As the grits were cooking, as they started to kind of soak up that stock, I added a few slabs of butter, got them all silky. Then instead of adding salt, I did add miso paste with the cream. I felt like that added a new kind of depth to the flavor, a nice umami foundation to the grits, and it was absolutely amazing. Highly recommend. And then you see me adding some garlic pepper and white pepper as well as cheddar cheese. After the cheddar cheese melts, give it a taste test. Amazing. But I decided to add the rest of the cheddar cheese as well as the chicken stock and some sour cream. After that, decided to get everything all plated. Did the base layer of grits, and then you will see me top with the greens here in a second. This was just overall an amazing, amazing experience. Very, very fun. I really enjoyed doing this. Here is the oxtail, beautiful. And as desired, I had this nice, rich, luxurious gravy to be able to drizzle over the top, to be able to kind of coat every bite in this curried oxtail infused with collagen gravy. And then here is a hot pickled pepper. I tried to incorporate a Jamaican vibe to everything, being that's where my roots are from. And this hot pepper kind of, and pickled, cuts through the oxtail's richness. And this is just a blackberry cobbler in its final form with a whiskey compote.